Hi guys, welcome to another Rants video. Today we're going to be discussing my issue with live action remakes. Yeah. I know this is mostly a Disney thing, but a few of them that I'm sure I'll reference are not necessarily Disney, so yeah. We'll just encompass all live action remakes here. Yeah, so there's no need to even talk about The Last Airbender movie. I've already done a whole rant on that one, which I'll link in the description. But yeah, that's just an atrocity to all cinema. Should never have existed, but it does, and here we are, so I just ignore that it exists. But in more recent years, I'm sure we've all noticed the trend of doing live action remakes of classic animated movies, especially Disney. They've done Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Mulan, Dumbo, Pinocchio. The latest is Little Mermaid. They've done Lion King too, which barely even counts as a live action remake because the entire movie is technically CGI anyways. But yeah. So notice that trend, and honestly, I'm sure you've also noticed they're not that great. There's several reasons for this. I think one of them is that because you're remaking the same story, you either go, so there's a lot of nostalgia attached to the originals for everyone who's honestly who grew up with them, not even if they didn't necessarily even have to be born in the same era as them, but they still grew up with these movies. Like, I was born after a lot of these classic Disney movies, but I still grew up with them, and so there's a whole lot of nostalgia attached to the originals. And so being able to remake a story like that and still have it be enjoyable is very, very hard, because either you try and add to the story and then you make it too different, so different that you make the fans of the classic mad because it's too different, or you pull what they did with Lion King and it's almost shot for shot for a whole bunch of things, and then it's just boring because it's the exact same movie, and there's like, what was the point of making this? There's a very, 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 very tiny window where that is a balance between the two of them, and Disney has not found it yet. And it's a very small window, and it's so hard to balance between making it not so different that it's not the classic story anymore, while also keeping it true, also making it kind of its own thing, so that it's not just watching the same movie over again and again. But yeah, so that balance is very hard to find, and that's part of the reason I feel like a lot of them are failing, because they either change it too much or they don't change it enough, and they haven't found that balance, and so therefore it's just a miss for most cases. On top of that, I know the music isn't as good in a lot of them. This is partially because for some singers, even they slap auto-tune on people like there's no tomorrow, whether they need the auto-tune or not, instead of putting in the work to either teach an actor to sing like I could do and putting that work into it. They just want the money, and so they slap the auto-tune on it, and so it doesn't sound quite natural, and the emotion is kind of taken away, and so therefore we lose a lot of what we get in the original soundtrack, and it's just, yeah, so that it just doesn't work, and it doesn't fit the feel of the movie. So yeah, auto-tune is a huge thing that they add into it, and sometimes even on singers that don't necessarily need auto-tune, they add auto-tune. Like, honestly, in Beauty and the Beast, Emma Watson plays Belle. I think she could probably sing and probably do a good job as Belle, but they slapped so much auto-tune on her that she doesn't sound natural anymore. So then it just ruins the whole soundtrack pretty much. And then they also like to get only like half of the main cast who's singing the actors can actually sing. Because in Lion King, we had Donald Glover played adult Simba. And he's an actor. He's a good actor, but he's not really a singer. And we paired him with was played by Beyonce. So we have this huge imbalance of vocal ability that we're pairing together. And on top of that, in Little Mermaid, we have Halle Bailey, who is an incredible singer. And you pair her with, I don't even know the name of the actor for Prince Eric, who doesn't seem to be a singer at all. And they try to make up for that with auto-tune on his part, and it just it doesn't work. So we have, if you're going to do that and you're going to hire people who can sing and are able to just blow their parts away, and you hire that for like half of the main cast, why not just do that for the rest of the cast? Like, it shouldn't be that hard to find someone who looks like Prince Eric but can actually keep up the vocal capability that you need, especially if you're going to give him his own song. So you're just kicking yourself in the butt. Or, find the actor that you want and then give him voice lessons so that he can sing and can reach these notes that you're trying to get him to reach, instead of slapping auto-tune on there and making it sound like a very unnatural note. So yeah, the music isn't great, and on Mulan they just took the soundtrack out entirely, which was one of the best parts of the movie. That's the thing with the live-action Mulan remake, which I haven't even seen because I have no desire to. They took out the best parts of the movie. They took out the soundtrack and Mushu, and then they changed it to pretty much an entirely different story because I guess it wasn't even technically based on the original movie anymore. They were basing it on the Legend of Mulan. And then, which is fine, but when you're selling it as a live-action remake of the original movie, you can't just take away everything that is based on the original movie and still call it a live-action remake of that movie. Then it's just a different movie in general. And you should change the title a little bit to like The Legend of Mulan or something, so then you know that it's not the exact same thing, because, yeah. Don't go into it expecting the original, like the storyline of the original movie, and getting something completely different. But yeah, the music just falls short, and it's also, again, partially because of all the nostalgia that we have wrapped up in the originals. Nostalgia is a really, really hard thing to beat. And they're using it to their advantage to make money by doing these live-action remakes, but at the same time, they're kicking themselves in the butt because there's so much expectation and there's so much that they're going to lay on you because they want something great out of this, which I don't think anyone's actually expecting anymore at this point. But you go into this expecting something, and they're putting standards, at least when they first started doing this, really high, and you're just failing us every time. And so it's getting to the point where you're not actually going to be making money off of these movies anymore, because people are going to stop looking forward to it because, whatever, they're going to screw it up again. They probably make more money off of original stories and writing new content and new storylines and creating new worlds or new characters for us to explore and to experience, and that would grab my attention way more than another live-action remake. Just saying, if Disney, if you're listening, invest in some good story writers so that you can actually get something creative and original out there, because I'd be way more interested in something that isn't just a ripoff of what I grew up watching, which you'll probably screw up. And on top of that, there's okay. I would like to preface this with the disclaimer that I have nothing against Black people or Black actors or whatever. It's like, great, all for it, but also my brain works in a way where I overthink everything, and I think very practically about things. And sometimes when they cast a black person for a specific role, my brain goes, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And I'll explain. Like in Rings of Power, which I also haven't watched, I heard about there was a black dwarf. You know where dwarves live, right? In the mountains, underground, in the dark. Do you know why black people evolved and adapted to be black? Because they live in hot, sunny parts of the world. It's not very sunny underground. So what would have caused this dwarf to evolve and adapt to be black? What would have caused that? There was also a black elf, I think, and that one's more just the description of elves, specifically from Tolkien, is like they're very fair-skinned, light creatures. And when I think of light and bright and fair creatures, black isn't exactly the first word that comes to mind. And again, nothing against black people or actors or whatever. I'm fine with that. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. Like in The Little Mermaid. Again, nothing against Halle Bailey. She's an incredible singer, honestly. And I'm sure she did justice to the role. But this is how my brain thinks. Where do mermaids live? On the bottom of the ocean. Do you know how dark it gets at the bottom of the ocean? There is so much water between you and the surface that very little light and very little heat gets down. Like, it gets very cold at the bottom of the ocean, and the light just gets less and less and less until it's pretty much pitch black. And so how does a half-fish creature who lives all the way down there in the dark and the cold adapt and evolve to be black? If anything, she would be white. And I'm not saying Caucasian, I mean white. Like albino white. Because there's almost no light coming through. So she wouldn't tan, she wouldn't anything. She would be very, very white. She would be albino. Like, is this making sense to anyone? Like, a mermaid would be albino because no light gets down there. There is no reason for her to have dark pigmentation in her skin. I heard a random reason like, oh, she's in the Mediterranean area. Why are they getting off on about her being black? Because she lives underwater. Could she then potentially, when she gets legs and turned into a human, get the darker pigmentation so that when she goes to the surface, she doesn't immediately burn to a crisp? Yes, and I wouldn't care because it would make sense. But when you live on the bottom of the ocean where there is little to no light and very low temperatures, there is no reason for you to be black. Like, there are no actual reasons for you to be black. And again, this is just how my brain works, and I know this is not real, and it's the magic of Disney and whatever, and it also just physics goes out the window when we're making a movie, but that is how my brain works. And so when I see a black mermaid, that is the first thing that comes into my brain, that doesn't work because it's not how pigmentation and evolving and skin color works. I'm really sorry about that little rant. Also, why does Hollywood hate redheads? Why? Like, they made the Flash in the DCEU have black hair. Yeah, he's a redhead. He's a brunette in the Flash show. They made Kid Flash and Iris West and Joe West. They made them all black. They're all Caucasian redheads. They made Ariel black. She's a redhead. Just, what does Hollywood have against redheads? I want to know. Does anyone actually know why they just won't cast a ginger to play a ginger? Does anyone know why? Because this is a pattern that I'm seeing, and it's unfortunate because why? Sometimes a redhead character, like, it just makes their character when they're a redhead. Like, you see what the character is like, whatever personality, and then you look at them, it's like, redhead makes sense on you. And then you have the same character and blah, 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 and then you look at it, it's like, you're not a redhead. Because Wally West. We have the Young Justice version, which is amazing. Redhead, super snarky. I love him. And then we have the Kid Flash, Wally West, in the Flash series. And he's black. And I have nothing against that actor. He's a great actor. But he doesn't work as Wally West. And they actually change Wally's personality, like, entirely. Because honestly, I can't see that actor. Not even, like, honestly, partially because of his appearance. Not saying black people can't be funny and snarky and whatever, but the actor that they cast as him, I cannot see him being snarky and funny and whatever else. Like, I can't see him being Wally West from Young Justice. And so he's not. They completely changed his personality. And so then it's not even Wally anymore. It's a different character that we're just calling by this guy's name. Again, I have nothing against black people or black actors, and I'm sorry if it's coming out that way, but does that make any sense? Like, this is the redhead, and you see the personality of the character, and him being a redhead just makes sense, or you read the personality of a character and you envision them as redhead, whether you're told that or not, and then you see them as a different race or a different hair color or whatever, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, the character that you've seen, that you know, and the appearance that we're getting just don't work. And appearance really does have a whole lot to do with character. You don't think about it, but how a character looks can have a huge impact on how people view them. And I'm not saying that in like a weird racist way, but like, if you have this super perky character, blah blah blah, and they're like their appearance is emo, that's gonna clash. And sometimes it's the point with a character is they look super big and brooding and they're actually a big softie. That's fine, that works. Honestly, there's some opposites that you can make work and then some that you can't, and the appearance of a character has a bearing on how they're viewed and how their personality honestly plays out. Because if you look at an emo kid, do you expect them to be all perky and optimistic? No, you don't. And yeah, just saying, appearance has a whole lot to do with how a character is viewed and how their personality clashes and so forth. So when they change the appearance of a character, they have to be very careful about how they do it. Because sometimes it's fine and it works, and then sometimes it just doesn't work at all. An example, live action, the TV series that they're making for Percy Jackson. When I first found out that Annabeth was going to be black, instead of a white blonde, it honestly shocked me. I was like, wait a second. No, that's not Annabeth. And that's because I have this vision in my head of how she looks. And I've had this for, like years. It's like, she is white, she's a white blonde. That is the vision I've had of her. And that is how I've imagined her throughout the entire series and throughout all of my experience and whatever else and discussions, whatever, and all that I have with this fandom. And then suddenly having her appearance change. And I know her dragon's involved in all the casting, and so she's gonna be a good Annabeth, but that first reveal of her being black very much threw me, just because of the appearance difference. She goes from a white blonde to black. And so black, dark skin, dark hair, dark eyes. She goes from light skin, light hair, light eyes to that, and it's very jarring. And I know it doesn't matter. But it was very jarring and very shocking, and it took a little bit for me to get used to the fact that, you know, that's how she's gonna look in the series. And I'm still getting used to the fact that Percy's probably gonna stay blonde. I'm still getting used to that. Even just hair color can make a huge difference. In case you, apparently I'm still on my tangent about appearance and character. I thought I was getting off of that, but apparently not. But it makes a huge difference from even hair color. The only thing that doesn't really get noticed, honestly, and I don't really notice most of the time, is eye color. And that's only if it's like their eyes have nothing to do with their character. Like sometimes I think the eye color is super, super important to their character, and therefore if they don't have that eye color, I freak out. But that doesn't happen too often, so eye color is probably the only thing that you don't really notice all the time, because it's a small detail compared to like their hair color or their skin color or whatever else. So yeah, tabling this tangent, appearance is important to how a character is viewed, how they're seen, how their personality clashes with their appearance is very important, and it needs to mesh well. Moving on, because I need to get through this, and I have other things I need to say. Back to specifically live action remakes and not just characters. They try too hard. I think they try too hard to add to the story. And I was talking about the balance between adding to the story and then changing it too much versus keeping it, or trying to add to the story and failing, and it's just shot for shot. There's a balance between shot for shot and change too much. Somehow you gotta meet in the middle. You shouldn't be making remakes if you haven't figured that out, and I haven't. And so here we are. But yeah, I feel like they try too hard to change it, and then they change it too much or in a way that doesn't make sense, or that doesn't add to the story because it doesn't actually matter. They made the live action Aladdin very, very feminist. So like, not that Aladdin wouldn't act a little bit like an idiot, because he does, but I feel like they pushed that a little bit harder than they needed to, and then they made Jasmine just the perfect, I know everything, I am the best. Not that she acted like that, but it's kind of just how she was portrayed. And I will be Sultan, and I will rule the land, and I am the royal of royal blood, so I am in charge of stuff. And like, they pushed that, and they reiterated it over and over and over and over again, even though that isn't actually the plot of the story. Like, the story doesn't center around Jasmine, isn't supposed to center around Jasmine and her fight to regain the throne. It's about Jafar trying to take over the throne, and Aladdin sneaking into the palace and lying to who he sees as the love of his life and whatever else, and the genie. And it's like, that's what that is about. It's not about Jasmine's fight to rule. It's not. And honestly, like, she's fighting so hard to get out of the palace all the time, like, and now you're just gonna force your way to the throne now, and probably have even less chance to get out of the palace. To have the freedom to, but not have the opportunity to. It didn't quite fit, in my opinion, and it like didn't need to be there, because it's not what the movie's supposed to be about. And I know they're trying to change it so that it's new and it's different, but if you're making a live action remake, stick to what the main plot is and then change, you can tweak things around that. Jeannie's love interest was unnecessary and very boring, and why did she exist? I think it was only so that he could tell his story to his future children, or tell his kids about the story of Aladdin. But it's like, his kids were just like the worst child actors ever. Seriously? They no. They weren't great. And yeah. And Will Smith kept going back and forth between being his own genie and trying to be Robin Williams' genie, and that just didn't work. He had to just pick your own genie, take the character your own way. That'll be better than you trying to pretend to be something that you really can't be. Like, you will never match Robin Williams. There are better ways to pay homage to him besides ruining his character by trying too hard to be him. So that's what that was. Yeah. Lion King was shot for shot, so it was basically the same movie with less talented vocalists on some parts. So yeah, that was also, the lions were uncanny valley. Like, they looked real, but not enough to work with what they were trying to do with the movie. Like, they didn't show any emotion, which the movie's about lions. They're the main character. They are the movie, so they should be able to show some, but they can't. So they were a little bit, yeah, underrated. What do you think? I watched the live action Cinderella once. I mean, I've only watched most of these ones, but it's been the longest since I've seen the live action Cinderella. It was like their first one, I think. So honestly, probably wasn't the worst. They got worse as they went along. Beauty and the Beast was something. It was something. I did like the Evermore song that they added for the Beast, personally. But that was pretty much it. That was probably my favorite part of the movie, and that's not saying a whole lot. All honesty, full disclosure, I kind of liked the Dumbo live action remake. It's been forever since I've seen the original, so there's really not a whole lot of nostalgia wrapped up in it for me, which is probably part of the reason I enjoyed it. But it was like the main plot points, like the stuff that everybody would know about, those stayed the same. But they added characters that were actually interesting, and they added a little bit more of a storyline. So they went through the main stuff for the original Dumbo movie, and then they just took it farther. It's probably one that's changed a lot more than some of the other ones, but it works better than the changes in the other movies. So honestly, I kind of like the Dumbo live action remake. It's been a little bit since I've watched it. I think I should rewatch that. But yeah, the Dumbo live action remake was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it, at least. I have not seen the Pinocchio live action remake. I have not actually heard anything about it because I think it was released directly to Disney Plus. I don't have that. And so I haven't seen it, and I don't really have any desire to. There was also like 3 or 4 Pinocchio movies coming out, because there's Guillermo del Toro's. There was one that was very low budget and just nightmare fuel. And then there was the official Disney live action remake. So I just had no idea when any of those were coming out, because I didn't care a whole lot, because I don't care that much about Pinocchio. It was never my favorite movie. It's kind of weird. What other live action remakes have they had? We've talked about Aladdin and Mulan. Goodness, there's been a lot. And then there's so many just random things out there that I don't actually know which ones are making, which ones they aren't. I feel like I've heard rumors of a live action Hercules, but I don't actually know if that's gonna be a thing. Just as long as they don't touch my treasure planet and Atlantis Lost Empire. Don't touch my babies. They're the greatest. They're amazing. They're like the best Disney movies ever. And as long as you don't touch them, I'll get over it. But just leave my babies alone. They're underrated. Which means they weren't popular when they came out. So don't make live action remakes of them, please. Please. Anyway. Yeah. I don't want any more live action remakes of anything. Because it's not necessary. The story's already been told in cinema form. It doesn't need to be told again. In a arguably worse, I'll say, an arguably worse way to tell it. There's a lot of things, like the animation. There are things you can do in animation that you cannot do in live action, and that's okay. Some things are just meant to be animation. And sometimes there are some superheroes, especially in DC, where I look at the animation and I look at the live action version of it and I go, you should have just stayed animated. Because you can do things in animation that you can't do in live action, and that's okay. Animation is still enjoyable. I don't care if you're an adult. You can still enjoy animation. I still watch children's shows. But yeah, I just want the live action remakes to stop. Apparently there's gonna be a How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. Please don't! Just please don't! It's an amazing trilogy. It doesn't need to be remade. It's so good. And I don't want you to ruin it with bad CGI or actors who just can't replicate the character, or an imbalance of changing it too much, not changing it enough, whatever. I don't want you to ruin this because it's amazing and it's one of my favorite trilogies for animated movies. It's so good. Please don't ruin this for me. It is my childhood. Gah! It's really annoying me. And it's DreamWorks. DreamWorks, you've had some great original movies coming out. Just don't try and keep up with Disney. Disney's kind of kicking itself in the butt. The only reason it's still making money is because there's some fanatic fans who just go to see everything from a franchise, no matter what. Just make quality stuff, and you'll probably make more money off of one project, and that'll carry you through to get the next one, versus Disney, who's just clamoring to get as much money as they can after all of the movies that could potentially be bombing because they're not even original, or they're not good, and they're just throwing out content so that they can make more money, and they're rushing it so the quality's bad, and the actors aren't, and the casting's probably not great, and the script writing's probably bad, and the CGI is just crap sometimes, and they're choosing quantity over quality. And I went on a whole rant about this in my Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 video. Quantity over quality does not work in the long run, because eventually you'll just get so bad that no one's gonna see your movies anymore, because they know ahead of time they're just gonna be crap. And they're probably not gonna trust you when you actually come up with a good idea, because all of the previous movies have been crap. And so choosing quality first will, in the end, give you a better reputation, so therefore more money, because you actually make things that are good. Logic is a lost skill in this day and age, and it's very sad and unfortunate for any kind of business. Like, you can't run a business like Disney tried to run Marvel, because they have to delay things now and cancel things because they're realizing, oh crap, we're running our VFX artists like to the breaking point, and these actually aren't making as much money. They're not. Are they really that bad? She-Hulk. You made freaking She-Hulk, and you want to talk to me about your show actually having you have the guts to claim that you still make quality stuff, after you make She-Hulk. I almost don't even count Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as Marvel anymore because James Gunn, you thank you for protecting that trilogy. But the rest of the Marvel stuff, and the Star Wars stuff, it's really unfortunate. Like, the two franchises are incredible and I love them. And I love what they used to be. And now they just... and it's really, really sad. It's very sad. Anyway, I'm such a Debbie Downer about this. This has been a very negative video. I'm sorry. But unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about live action remakes because they're unnecessary and they don't need to exist. It's just movie companies trying to make more money. And it's a really bad tactic, honestly. It's a really bad tactic. If you want to make a classic movie that'll last generations, make a good classic movie. And if you do that, if you have a quality movie like the classic Disney stuff, like one or two of the newer things that they come out, like Onward, that honestly in my brain is totally gonna be a classic because it's a good enough movie that the people who were born in that generation, when that comes out, will share it with their kids and so on and so forth, and so it'll just live forever because it's a good enough story that people will pass it on. That's how you make that is how you make money, and that's the point of cinema and of all kinds of the arts that involve like writing and making movies and TV shows. That's the point, is that we're making stories for other people to enjoy that will just last and go on, and they'll share and they'll just keep sharing it, and it'll just go on forever because it's such a good story that people want it to keep going. At least in my mind, that's the goal of writing and of creating stories, whether it is in book form or in movie form, and it should be the goal for these big companies. Like, that should be your goal. You're here for the entertainment of other people, not to make a bunch of money. Do you need money to make movies? Yes. So you profit off of the stories that you make, but that's not your goal, or it shouldn't be your goal. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that, but that's my mindset. Your storytellers are here to tell stories, not make money. Anyway, on that note, those are my thoughts and those are my issues with the live action remakes. It's just, they don't need to exist. We're here to tell stories, guys. Tell stories. Care about what you're doing. Like, get into your job and into the story that you're in, this world and whatever. Get into it. That's how you make a quality movie that people will like, that they'll share, that will just go on. Stop trying to grab at money. It's just gonna make you want more. It's never gonna be enough. You find more. It's a lot more enjoyable to be able to share a story that lives forever than make all the money in the world. So, yeah. Anyway, drop your thoughts and your recommendations in the comments. I post my videos every Wednesday and Friday. I'll see you all next time.